Thank you.
James Wilde.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Like other honourable members who've spoken today, I welcome this bill and I congratulate the honourable member for Barnsley Central for introducing this important legislation to the House and for his efforts to secure successfully cross-party and government support for it so that it can make it to the point it has today, and hopefully later on today it will pass through our House on the way to the second House. And this bill would address a gap in the current protections by giving the Secretary of State the power by regulation to extend protection against redundancy to cover a longer period during or after a period of pregnancy. And it would give the Secretary of State the power to make regulations to extend equivalent protections for those on adoption leave or shared parental leave after those periods of leave have concluded. Now, this bill has been a long time in the making, and it's come too late, as the honourable member said, for his constituent, Natasha. It was back in 2015 that the EHRC, working with the then Department for Business, Innovation and Skills, commissioned research into this issue, precisely to establish the prevalence and nature of pregnancy discrimination and disadvantage in the workplace. Other honourable members have referred to the data, but I think it bears repetition. Published in the finding that there was a shocking estimate that around 54,000 mothers may be forced out of their jobs each year. 77% of mothers said they had had a negative or possibly discriminatory experience during pregnancy, maternity leave, or on their return from maternity leave. The second piece of research I want to mention was that carried out by Pregnant Then Screwed. My humble friend for Orpington referred to the findings that over 11% of women on maternity leave have been made redundant or expect to be made redundant, of whom 60% believe that their maternity leave was a factor in the decision. So those are the statistics, but behind all of those statistics there's a terrible impact on individuals and their families. And we are here in this House to protect people from such discrimination, and that's what this legislation will do today. But as well as those surveys and work outside Parliament, I think it is right to recognise the action that the government has taken and other members have taken in this House to address the issue, including my right honourable friend for Basingstoke, who put forward a number of bills on this. And back in 2019, the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy launched a consultation to extend the current protection to cover a period of pregnancy and the period after, an extension of 6 months. In response, the government pledged to extend the redundancy protections as well as extending equivalent protections from those taking adoption leave or shared parental leave. And as others said, this was included as an outline measure in the Queen's speech in 2019, shortly after the election. However, understandably, the government had to focus on leading the country through the pandemic. But happily, that employment bill, rather like the breakup of AT&T and the creation of the baby bills, has now allowed a number of smaller bills to come forward to flourish. Hopefully others will also be discussing today will take forward what was in that employment bill. So I warmly welcome the government's support for this bill, which demonstrates a commitment to protecting people's employment rights whilst maintaining that important labour market flexibility that's seen unemployment at a low of 50 years. Of course, in doing so, it's important that employers and employees are aware of these new protections. So I'd be interested to hear more from the Minister on the government's plans to work with business organisations, the Federation of Small Businesses, the British Chambers of Commerce, the CBI, the Institute of Directors, as well as the TUC and other organisations, to promote the changes so that companies know what they have to do and individuals know what their rights are. And of course, this is a framework bill, and it's important to get the detail of the regulations right, which is why the affirmative procedure is appropriate in this case. Again, perhaps the Minister can update the House on when he expects to bring forward those regulations and how much consultation he's had with the groups that I've mentioned and others to make sure we get this right. But in legislating this House, we always have to be mindful to minimise the costs to business as far as possible of legislation that we may pass. And in paragraph 24 of the explanatory notes, the one-off costs to business in familiarising themselves with the new legislation, for example, to amend their HR policies, is estimated at over £30 million. So I would expect, and I know my honourable friend the Minister, I'm pretty sure this will happen, that the government will issue simple, clear guidance for companies to follow to make this as simple as possible to implement. I think there's a broader point here about the need to revitalise our deregulatory agenda in other policy areas, to reduce the cost of business, to back enterprise, as the Chancellor set out in his recent speech. And I think there's lots of opportunities without the limitations of being members of the EU to do that. But in conclusion, there's a great consensus across the Chamber today, and I look forward to the bill completing its remaining stages and delivering